In our headlines on this Monday afternoon, Emmanuel Macron has been re-elected as the President of France, beating far-right candidate Marine Le Pen. In his victory speech, Macron pledged to unite a divided France. Ukraine has called for talks with Russia near the Azovstal plant in Mariupol, where Ukrainian fighters and civilians are holding out in a city that is mostly under Kremlin's control. South Korea's ramyeon exports hit above $71 million in March, up 20% on year, amid growing global popularity of the K-contents. Hope your work week is off to a good start. You're watching the Daily Report for Monday, April 25th here in Korea. I'm Min Sun-hee. We begin with news on the international front. French President Emmanuel Macron has secured another 5-year term in office by defeating his rival Marine Le Pen with more than 58% of the votes cast. Arirang has our top story.
French President Emmanuel Macron has been re-elected for a second 5-year term. According to the figures released by the French Interior Ministry on Monday local time, Macron took 58.55% of the vote, with 41.45% for far-right rival Marine Le Pen. This makes Macron the first president in 20 years to win a second term in France. Earlier on Sunday, official polls had already projected that Macron would be re-elected by a comfortable margin. The 44-year-old president delivered a toned-down speech on Sunday, shortly after his re-election, thanking his supporters in Paris while saying he understood the anger of people who back Le Pen.
Finally, I think of those who voted for Madame Le Pen, who I know are disappointed this evening. No, don't boo anyone. From the beginning, I asked you never to boo, because I am no longer the candidate of a party, but the president of everyone.
Le Pen also has already conceded defeat. But she told her supporters that the game is not over, indicating legislative elections in a few weeks.
Tonight, I will say it again. I will never abandon the French. Long live the Republic. Long live France.
President Macron 5 years ago won the election to become France's youngest president at 39. Back then, Macron beat Le Pen by a margin of 32 percentage points. Meanwhile, leaders around the world were busy congratulating Emmanuel Macron on his re-election. Macron's first call was from German Chancellor Olaf Scholz on Sunday, who earlier tweeted his congratulations to Macron, saying he is glad that the two countries could continue good cooperation. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said Washington expects further close collaboration with France on global challenges. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson also posted on Twitter, saying he looked forward to continuing to work together on issues which matter most to the two countries and the world. Other leaders, including European Parliament President Roberta Metsola and the President of the European Council, Charles Michel, congratulated Macron on his victory. Lee Jae-in, Arirang News.
Staying in Europe, Ukraine has called for talks with Russia near the Azovstal plant in Mariupol, where Ukrainian fighters and civilians continue to resist Russian attacks in a city that is now largely under Kremlin's control. Our Kim Hyo-sun reports.
Ukraine has made an offer to Russia to hold a special round of negotiations in the city of Mariupol, which is under serious attack by Russian forces. Ukraine's presidential office said Sunday that the negotiations would be aimed at discussing the fate of Ukrainian civilians and troops still trapped in the city. It also suggested that the negotiations be held near the Azovstal steel plant, which is the last holdout of Ukraine's defense in the southern port city. Also on Sunday, Ukrainian officials accused Russia of attempting to storm the giant steel plant. It added that this comes despite Russian President Vladimir Putin's comments last week that the complex does not need to be taken. Ukraine's Armed Forces Command explained that Russian forces were hitting the plant with air and artillery bombardments. It added that Moscow is firing and performing offensive operations in the area while conducting airstrikes and civilian infrastructure at the same time. Ukraine's officials explained that an estimated 100,000 people remain trapped in Mariupol and over 20,000 people in the city have died so far since the onset of Russia's invasion. The mayor of the city said that they are witnessing, quote, the greatest war crime of the 21st century, stressing that the rest of the world needs to respond to stop the genocide by any means possible. Against this backdrop, a senior White House official highlighted in a televised interview on Sunday that Washington has been reviewing all possible means to hold Moscow accountable for what's happening in Ukraine. Pundits say this could even include the possibility of designating Russia a state sponsor of terrorism, which Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has recently asked President Joe Biden to do. Kim Yo-sun, Arirang News.
Here on the peninsula, North Korea appears to be preparing for a massive military parade to mark the 90th founding anniversary of the Korean People's Revolutionary Army on this Monday. Now, U.S. media outlet NK News on Sunday shared satellite images showing a number of the country's air corridor planes flying across the country in recent days, reportedly as part of preparations for the upcoming parade. The outlet added that soldier and civilian training was also detected over the weekend. A significant number of guests were also spotted with dozens of buses parked at the April 25 hotel, which is located next to the military parade training base. On the local front, Korea's daily COVID-19 tally has dropped to below the 40,000 level for the first time in about 11 weeks to post 34,370 new infections. Now, accordingly, the few remaining restrictions are being rolled back starting on this Monday to better reflect this reality. Our Jae-in has more.
Starting Monday, people in South Korea are permitted to eat while watching movies and concerts indoors. Authorities are lifting the ban on eating at indoor venues, including theaters, concert halls, indoor sports facilities, as well as singing rooms. People will also be allowed to eat food samples at supermarkets. Eating on public transport, such as on express buses, trains, and airplanes, is allowed as well. However, people are still not permitted to eat on public buses that are compact. Also beginning Monday, COVID-19 has been downgraded in terms of its classification. Since January 2020, it was categorized as a level 1 infectious disease, the most dangerous and highest on the government's 4-tier scale. The downgrade to level 2 means people no longer have to report a COVID-19 infection immediately as long as they report within 24 hours. A level 2 disease also means self-isolation is no longer mandatory, but this requirement will still be in effect for at least another 4 weeks as the government is implementing a grace period. Once this ends, people with COVID-19 will be able to visit local clinics and hospitals to get treated, just like they would when they catch a cold or the flu. This also means medical fees will no longer be covered by the government. Authorities this week will also discuss lifting the outdoor mask mandate. If lifted, people will no longer be fined for not wearing masks when standing less than 2 meters apart from others. However, officials will maintain mask mandates for indoor venues, citing the relatively higher risk of infection. Jae-in, Arirang News.
President Moon Jae-in and First Lady Kim Jong-suk got their 4th COVID-19 vaccine shots earlier on this Monday morning. They received the Pfizer vaccine at a health center in Cheongno-gu district here in capital Seoul. Now, health authorities have been recommending a second booster shot to people aged 60 and above this month with an interval of at least 4 months from the first booster. Now, President Moon and the First Lady had their 3rd shots, that would be their first booster doses, back in October. The Blue House has shared hopes for the elderly to seek vaccination and hence better protection against COVID-19. Meanwhile, South Korean President-elect Yoon has pledged to place priority on protecting people. The remarks were made earlier on this Monday during a visit to the headquarters of SK Bioscience that is expected to become the first firm in South Korea to develop a domestic COVID-19 vaccine. He was accompanied by SK Group Chairman Choi Tae-won as well as vaccine developers and took a tour around the various research facilities. Separately, a delegation sent to Japan by Yoon met with Japan's foreign minister on Monday and is also scheduled for talks with the economy and defense ministers of the Kishida administration. Prospects for the Korean economy are looking bleak, and IMF believes that authorities here should seek to scale back on spending. Our Kim Yeon-sung explains.
South Korea's growth forecast looks dim, while the country will see steep price rises. The International Monetary Fund last week estimated consumer prices in South Korea would rise 4% this year. The IMF, in its 2022 World Economic Outlook released last week, also lowered South Korea's growth outlook to 2.5% from 3%. Martin Kaufman, Korean mission chief at the IMF, talked to Yonhap News Agency and gave some tips on how South Korea could deal with this situation. He first suggested dialing back the country's expansionary fiscal policies. The government has been offering financial support to some of the pandemic's hardest hit. But with South Korea quickly aging as a society, Kaufman said that spending on pensions and public health is likely to rise. So right now, South Korea needs to be more prudent and selective with its spending. He also advised Korea to focus on building fiscal soundness with a medium-term outlook. According to Kaufman, a solid fiscal framework and strong fiscal rules would help South Korea in the uncertain future. Kim Hyun-sung, Arirang News.
Korea's instant noodles, ramyeon, are pleasing palates across the globe. In fact, exports in March hit an all-time high. Our Kim Sung-min has the figures.
South Korea's exports of instant noodles soared to a fresh high last month on the back of global popularity. According to the Korea Customs Service on Monday, the country exported $71.58 million worth of ramyeon in March, up 20% from a year ago. It was the first time that monthly outbound shipments of the food items surpassed the $70 million mark. The export volume also rose to a record high of over 20,000 tons, an increase of more than 17% on year. The biggest buyer of the noodles was China, followed by the US and Japan. Analysts assume the craze largely stems from South Korea's growing cultural influence, with the country's music and dramas gaining popularity across the world.
One thing global viewers would come across a lot when watching Korean dramas is the characters eating ramyeon, so they'll be curious about it. And with K-pop becoming more popular, fans are paying attention to South Korea's culture in general as well.
One example is the sudden spike in interest of japaguri, a signature noodle dish from the Oscar-winning film Parasite. It's a mixture of two different types of instant noodles, japageti and noguri, and both products saw their sales surge, with overseas fans wanting to try it themselves. He added that low cost and high accessibility could also explain the current wave of ramen fever. Watchers say global sales of ramyeon could in fact be higher than the released figure, as it does not reflect the sales of products produced locally by Korean firms overseas. Kim Sung-min, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, in a move that is expected to have extensive repercussions, Indonesia, the world's largest palm oil exporter, has announced plans to halt shipments overseas starting Thursday this week. Our Min Suk-hyun has more on the measure and its implications.
Indonesia, the world's top palm oil producer, will soon ban exports of the most widely used vegetable oil in a bid to ease domestic shortages and tackle soaring prices.
The government has decided to ban exports of cooking oil and its raw materials starting on Thursday, April 28, 2022, until further notice.
The export ban on the vegetable oil is expected to raise prices for global food producers, including South Korea, as the country is heavily dependent on palm oil imports from Indonesia. Just last year, South Korea imported about 342,000 tons of palm oil from Indonesia, accounting for more than half of total imports. Palm oil is widely used in processed foods such as snacks like cakes and sweets and Korean instant noodles, ramyeon. Local food producers usually have up to 3 to 6 months of supplies, so consumers would not immediately feel the pinch from higher prices. But if palm oil prices surge and a supply shortage persists, this would further drive food prices up. Already, the cost of instant noodles in South Korea is growing at a fast pace, with the price of ramyeon in October jumping almost 12% on year, the biggest gain in more than 12 years. Min Suk-hyun, Arirang News.
Analysts say an annual investment of some $5.7 trillion is necessary until the year 2030 to garner the goal of capping global warming as agreed under the 2015 Paris Agreement. Now, the ambitious goal is to keep the rise in global temperatures at 1.5 degrees Celsius by the year 2050. The annual sum of investment was calculated by the International Renewable Energy Agency and was shared in its World Energy Transitions Outlook report for this year. The agency adds $700 billion of investment every year needs to be redirected from fossil fuels to energy transition technologies. April marks the month of Earth Day, a day that has been set aside to encourage appreciation of the environment and awareness of the issues that threaten it. Now, in light of this occasion, my colleague Kim Bo-kyung has revisited the broader issue of reducing waste. Do take a look.
Overflowing waste. According to the Environment Ministry, waste paper in 2020 increased by 25% compared to the previous year. PET plastic waste increased by 19%, and PVC plastic wrapping was up 9%.
Compared to other materials, plastic causes much bigger environmental issues when incinerated or buried. If buried, it does not rot. And if incinerated, gas is emitted because plastic is made by petroleum and it causes air pollution by producing toxic materials. It is very hard to deal with the plastic waste compared to other papers and metals. That is why we need to recycle it properly.
There are lots of types of plastic such as PET, PVC, polystyrene, and polypropylene. Among those, we are most familiar with PET, the type of plastic used for beverage bottles. How are they being recycled? The PET recycling company first needs to detach the labels, sort out the bottles by colors and get rid of alien substances, crush them into pieces, and clean them several times. Out of those steps, getting rid of the label is the most important but toughest task.
80 to 90% of the bottles have labels on. During the recycling process, we are seeing so much waste because of this. If we have label mixed with PET material, it cannot be recycled into a high-quality product. When we filter out the labels, PET gets filtered as well. That's a lot of loss.
To tackle this problem and help make the recycling process much easier, water bottle manufacturers have started making bottles without labels.
Back in 2020, this beverage company became the first in the country to sell label-free water bottles. Instead of having a label, its brand name is engraved on the plastic bottle.
Lotte Chosun Beverage started rolling out label-free bottles in January 2020. The manager at the bottle factory says making a label-free product is quite difficult, as the whole manufacturing process needs to be changed, starting from the bottle's mold design.
To come up with a label-free water bottle, we have invested in mold equipment and had to go through trial and error for about a year to put in the indented logo and secure the product stability.
One more obstacle that stood in the way was the duty of putting all the necessary information about the manufacturer, volume and nutritional details on the product.
네, 페트병 자체는 무라벨이잖아요. 그런데 법적으로 표시기 전에 표시해야 된다고 알고 있는데 어떻게 표시하고 있나요?
네, 이쪽에 보이시는 게 손잡이인데요. 이 손잡이에다가 필수 표시사항을 기록한 후 20개 포장을 한 다음에 거기다가 손잡이로 부착을 하고 있습니다.
There were worries about the effect this lack of labeling would have on sales. However, these label-free bottles have turned out to be very popular. 1.37 million crates were sold in 2020. In 2021, that figure exploded to more than 24 million crates. Then how many labels were saved? For 1.5-liter water plastic bottles, 0.8 grams of plastic is used on the label, and 0.3 grams is needed for a 500-milliliter water bottle. When added up, going label-free saved a total of 129 tons of waste from labels alone. Now knowing that such label-free products are appealing to consumers, other manufacturers too have started to go label-free. Coca-Cola introduced non-label Coke with a contour crafting design for the very first time in South Korea. And carbonated drinks such as Seagram have also been adapting to the non-label trend. Even soy sauce bottles and dairy products such as yogurts have gone label-free. But many companies could still have trouble making the label-free molds or changing their whole manufacturing process. In that case, the owner of the PET recycling company suggests that manufacturers make labels float so that they can easily be separated when the bottles are broken up and cleaned in water. Labels are usually made of PVC, but if they are made of the lighter polypropylene instead, then this will float and can easily be separated from the heavier PET that is used to make plastic bottles. These polypropylene labels could then also be recycled.
이런 것들은 아까 그 물에 뜨는 그 약간 라벨 같은 것들로 만든
그렇죠. 그렇죠.
이런 것들이 어디에 쓰일 수 있는 건가요?
이게 주로 이제 PP라는 건데 물에 뜨는 게 PP가 제일 많은데 이거는 일회용 팔레트 같은 건 거의 100% 이걸로 써요. 지금.
그러면 물에 뜰 수 있게 라벨을 만들어 주면 그래도
다 재활용되는 거죠. 쓰레기로 안 가고 전부 재활용품으로 만들어질 수 있는 것들이죠.
But even if every manufacturer could make label-free products or make labels that are easily separated, one expert says recycling the plastic is just the first step and doesn't fully solve the problem. There is no 100% recycling, as there always will be a certain amount of loss during the recycling process. Eventually, people need to think about the fundamental issue of not using disposal wrappers or containers.
If we get to the core of the waste issue, we need to use reusable wrappers instead of disposable ones. Think about soju or beer bottles. We wash them and use them again. We can also use reusable containers for water, detergents, and other beverages, can't we?
There are two ways to use reusable containers. First is to set up a refill station where visitors can get the product and carry it in their own reusable containers. Another is for the manufacturer to sell the products in reusable containers from the start. By introducing a deposit return scheme, empty containers could be returned, washed, and reused. These all require manufacturers to change facilities and invest in new infrastructure. The main reason why such reusable containers are not being readily used. Though South Korea is late to the discussion, an expert says the country could still lead the market if it acts now.
So basically, we need to think about changing containers from disposable to reusable. Global companies are already putting this into action. South Korea is late. We are now considering how to recycle well and use the recycled materials. But fortunately, we are in a better situation. Glass bottles are still being used for soju and beer, so we have higher rate of using reusable glass. Though we are late, since we still have infrastructure that uses reusable containers, we could find it easier to deal with the issue.
Making recycling easier, from plastic to glass, from disposable to reusable. It will take some time, but in order to protect and preserve our Earth, we should start taking the right steps as soon as we can. 김보경, Arirang News.
Farmers here are turning to technology to allow for greater yield and less labor. Our Yoon has more on these so-called smart farms.
This giant greenhouse is filled with green plants and red LED lights. This particular section of greenery is made up of sprouts of barley, and the red LED lights help the sprouts grow. One side of this greenhouse is full of newly sprouting barley seeds. What's unique about this farm is that the barley sprouts are not grown in soil, but in clean water in what are being called smart farm installations. The smart farms use ICT technology that automatically controls temperature, humidity, and also sunlight. Another aspect of the installation is that it has 7 display case type layers that allow a constant supply of light, including the supplementary LED light, and it's also set up to allow for a continuous flow of nutrient-filled water.
This setup is very safe, and it's a great advantage that the plants are free from pollutants. It's also a great way to foster a nutritional environment.
This smart farm produces 280 times more barley than in an area of land that's the same size. From here, the sprouts are processed into products like powder and granules that are mainly sold online or at large stores. Recently, smart farms have expanded from just barley to other crop types like black barley, oats, lentils, and peas.
The automated nature of smart farms allows for increased productivity while reducing labour. Expansion of this smart farm technology will make our agriculture competitive in the global market.
The Rural Development Administration will continue to actively promote their smart farm-related technology through the Korea Agricultural Technology Promotion Agency. 이은진, Arirang News.
North Korea celebrates the 90th anniversary of the founding of its military on this Monday, April 25th, amid speculations of a military parade and even another nuclear or missile test in the near future. For more on these prospects, I have Professor Jung Kim from the University of North Korean Studies. Welcome to the studio, Professor Kim.
Thank you for having me.
I also have Professor Kim Young-jun at the Korean National Defense University, who is currently joining this session from New Delhi, India. Professor Kim Young-jun, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you. Hello from India.
Right. We'll start here in the studio then. Professor Jung Kim, let's begin with a few words on the meaning of this particular day. And how does it differ from the February 8th holiday?
So today is the 19th anniversary of the establishment of Korean People's Revolutionary Army, which was created by Kim Il-sung in 1932 as the anti-Japanese guerrilla troops. And the February 8th is the commemorating day for the establishment of Korean People's Army, which is the regular army of North Korea.
Right, I see. Professor Kim Young-jun, shows of strength have been common to mark important holidays in North Korea, with military parades putting on display new weapons. Do you expect a similar spectacle this year? And what would be the implications amid current concerns over Pyongyang's rampant acts of provocation?
Yes, I expect the similar spectacular in military parade. Why not? Because now is the U.S.-China strategic competition is very high, and Russia-Ukraine war is still going on, and China, Russia, North Korea belt is very effective to the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. And also he sent a love letter to the President Moon, but the warning to the President Yoon as well. So he now is decide to invest his nuclear missile capability for the next 5 years under the Yoon administration. So now it's not surprising if you see a spectacular military parade in this time.
Right, so that would be later on this Monday then. Professor Jung Kim, contrary to widespread speculations or expectations, that is, on the birthday of North Korea's founding father on April 15th, the event then did not have a military parade. It was a largely civilian affair with synchronized dancing and flamboyant fireworks. Now, some pundits claim that this was a calculated move. What are your thoughts?
That's correct. It's always the North Korean move for the some escalation as well as de-escalation is some calculated and strategic decision here. So basically in North Korea, the military parade is a symbol of strength as well as somehow the prosperity for the people as well as for the international audience. So in that sense, they will choose a day which will be the most effective as well as the efficient to symbolize the strength of North Korea, not only for the domestic audience, but also international audience.
And that would be today then?
I think so.
Right. Professor Kim Young-jun, on the eve of April 15th, Kim Jong-un promoted 6 commanding officers to general, including one who had been demoted last year. What may be the intentions behind these promotions?
Yes, promotion means a lot, especially promotion of 6 commanding officers, including the former Defense Minister Kim Jong-un. His message is very clear. Kim Jong-un wants to focus on strong self-defense weapon development for a while against the future potential U.S.-ROC Japan security cooperation under the Yoon administration. So promotion of this guy, even though Kim Jong-un is still focused on economic policy and North Korean people's well-being, but this means he wants to also focus on this self-defense development.
Right. And Professor Jung Kim, there is strong belief, as I mentioned earlier, that North Korea will conduct a nuclear test this year. Do you agree?
Definitely. So basically, the North Korea now has, first of all, the political demand for the new nuclear test, especially in order to attract the attention of the United States, the Biden administration, as well as they have also some technical demand for, say, the upgrading, especially the so-called tactical nuclear weapons. So technically as well as politically, new the nuclear test will be coming soon, I think.
Right. And Professor Kim Young-jun, speaking within your capacity as a scholar, what response measures do you believe would be appropriate from South Korea and its international allies in the wake of a nuclear test by North Korea?
Everybody does want nuclear tests, and everybody want denuclearization if North Korea decide giving up their nuclear capacity. But unfortunately, now the situation is not very good. U.S.-China strategic competition and potential Taiwan conflict is going on, and Russian-U.S. conflict is still going on. Under this situation, Kim Jong-un clears no, China, Russia will not join U.S. lead UN sanction. So Kim Jong-un know about this. Kim Jong-un want to use this opportunity for the next 5 years. So we need to prepare for that. And Yoon administration have to focus on U.S., Japan possible security cooperation against this.
Right. Professor Kim Young-jun, staying with that same question then, the incoming Yoon administration has spoken of taking a hard-line stance against North Korea in the case of provocation. Do you suppose this policy would be effective in dealing with cross-border ties?
Yeah, unfortunately, until now, Yoon administration policy is similar what the Lee Myung-bak government and Park Geun-hye government. There's no something new from the Yoon administration, and their people, key foreign policy team, including Kim Sung-han and Kim Tae-yo, is all Lee Myung-bak administration guy. So now it's Kim Jong-un attitude will be continue and clear, and love letter to the President Moon, who support in the Korean relation, but warning sign to the Yoon administration, who more focus on U.S. and Japan security cooperation.
Right. Professor Chung Kim, as Professor Kim Young-jun has mentioned, late last week we covered news about an unexpected gesture of goodwill between the two Koreas in the form of letters between the North Korean leader and South Korea's President Moon Jae-in. Now, Kim Jong-un acknowledged Moon Jae-in's efforts to advance cross-border ties. How do you interpret this olive branch of sorts?
So North Korea always have two wings to manipulate the South Korean public opinion as well as the political elites. The first one is obviously the military escalation strategy. And then second one is the charm offensive, like this kind of the exchange of the letter between the two presidents here. So I think this is more like as the so-called blame avoidance if the new administration of South Korea try to settle the higher bar to resume the inter-Korean dialogue, then basically the responsibility is on the shoulder of the President Yoon, not the President Kim Jong-un here. That's the main purpose here. So I don't think that's the candid goodwill posture towards South Korea.
Right. Professor Kim Young-jun, extracts from Kim's response to President Moon's letter were shared by North Korea's state media, which added that the exchange was an expression of deep trust. Now, some observers say that these words by Pyongyang come as a pretext to blame the incoming Yoon administration for any escalation cross-border standoff. Do you agree?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Kim Jong-un is also a personal leader, and he clearly sent his love letter to the President Moon Jae-in, hope to have a good relation for the future. Maybe, who knows, the President Moon Jae-in will be Jimmy Carter. But in the meantime, Kim Jong-un clearly the warning sign to the future president, the Yoon Suk-yeol, because of Yoon Suk-yeol administration message is somewhat very similar to the former government of Lee Myung-bak and Park Geun-hye. So Kim Jong-un now is dual message to the two leaders. So different policy will lead a different outcome according to Kim Jong-un's message.
Right. Professor Chung Kim, Unification Minister nominee Kwon Young-se claimed that the exchange of letters was a good thing, but that, but he previously did say that it would be difficult to normalize cross-border ties amid Pyongyang's nuclear ambitions. Now, how do you envision the fate of inter-Korean ties under the incoming Yoon administration?
So at least in the earlier phase of the new administration of South Korea, I don't think there's any good, prospect for the reconciliation between two Koreas, because North Korea want to discipline this new administration that has declared some strategic clearance for the North Korea, and possibly the North Korea has to show their resolve and willingness to make some confrontation if necessary. So, and the South Korean new government will have to show there's some resolve as well. So, for meantime, there's some less likely to have new round of inter-Korean dialogue, at least within this year.
Right, unfortunately then. Professor Kim Young-jun, Foreign Minister nominee Park Jin has called for practical changes to North Korea policies. What changes do you suppose is he referring to?
The Foreign Minister Park Jin is a much experienced foreign policy guy, as everybody agree with that. The problem is there's no new idea from his foreign policy team. He focused on the removal of the Korean Peninsula peace process, the Moon Jae-in administration, which has tried to over the 3 years. And his belief is about the sanction, and North Korea surrender to give up their nuclear weapons. This is a very old style and again a policy from the Lee Myung-bak and Park Geun-hye government. That's why Kim Jong-un now has no hope for a future inter-Korean relation talk, and I think as Foreign Minister Park Jin more focused on the ROC U.S.-Japan security cooperation against North Korea possible provocation.
So, Professor Kim Young-jun, as you said, this idea of sanction to surrender nuclear ambitions may not be very feasible. What are your recommendations then? I understand it's a difficult question, though.
Yeah, that is a very difficult question for the Professor Kim Jong and for me as well. We have tried every possible option over the 2 decades, but at the same time, we need to also against the North Korean possible provocation. So we need to have a close talk with the U.S. and China is a very strong the unstable character in this region, and North Korea want to be independent from Chinese colonialization over North Korean economy. So we need to find some common objective between North Korea, South Korea, and the U.S. for the future.
You're right, we do. And keeping in mind what Professor Kim Young-jun has just said, Professor Chung Kim, what are your thoughts on the policy of carrots and sticks, where with the incoming Yoon administration, they're thinking of having more sticks than carrots? What are your thoughts on that?
So for the new administration of South Korea, they think some sort of the engagement policy proved somehow miserable failure. So building on that kind of past experience, they have to think about more, say, practical as well as optimal policy toward North Korea. But in terms of policy mixture, they have to empathize the say more containment policy and less the engagement policy. So that kind of some unbalanced policy mixture has to be implemented at least earlier phase of the new administration in order to say at least some sort of the as a policy implementation and experiment. So if possible, I suggest say it's okay to have the both stick and carrot, but any kind of North Korea policy must be realistic. So should not escalate too much, but at the same time show some toughness to some sort of the provocation of North Korea. Both some balanced policy implementation would be better than any some secured policy.
Right. Professor Jang Kim, North Korea's news presenter Ri Chun-hee was given a brand new home by North Korean leader Kim Jong-un for her alleged loyalty. And pictures of Kim giving Ri a tour of a brand new home made headlines in mid-April. What are your thoughts on these seemingly innocuous acts of kindness, if I may?
So, as I said, every movement of especially the supreme leader of Kim Jong-un is strategic. So that kind of some gift giving have some meaning first for the inner circle of the political elites of North Korea, that this is the reward for the loyalty for the Kim Jong-un as well as the back to the family here. At the same time, this is some kind of the showing off of the affluence of North Korea toward the mass public. So on both front, Kim Jong-un tried to manipulate strategically the heart and mind of political elites as well as public myth.
Right. And Professor Kim Young-jun, speaking of North Korea's state media, a report earlier on Sunday claimed the country had secured, quote, an invincible power that the world cannot ignore and no one can touch, unquote. What is your interpretation of these defiant words by North Korea?
North Korea is now using media very successfully, and now we can expect Kim Jong-un using media to get success done of his strategy, just like Professor Kim Jong already pointed out. So now is the statement of the North Korean media is also his policy continuing. So we need to focus on what Kim Jong-un really want to do and what Kim Jong-un really will do. So from the North Korean media, we expect to see more strategic message and methodology from the Kim Jong-un regime.
Right, I see. So only time will tell then. All right, Professor Kim Young-jun, thank you very much for your time over there in New Delhi. And Professor Jang Kim here in the studio, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you very much.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. Shanghai is seeing a rising number of COVID-related deaths. The city recorded 39 fatalities from COVID-19 on Saturday, the most seen in a single day. That brings the region's total since late February to 87. Health officials said the average age of those who died is 78.7, all of whom had underlying conditions. Shanghai saw 21,058 new cases on Sunday, down slightly from the previous day. The city has been in a strict lockdown for the past 4 weeks, with many residents not allowed to leave their homes at all during that time. Those restrictions show no sign of easing, with authorities reportedly building fences across the city to seal off building entrances. An explosion in Nigeria over the weekend has killed over 100 people. The blast occurred at an illegal oil refining depot in the country's Imo state on Saturday local time. According to State Commissioner Goodluck Opia, many of the victims were burnt beyond recognition. Authorities are now looking for the owner of the facility. Unemployment in the region has led to an increase in illegal refinement operations, where crude oil is tapped from pipelines owned by major oil companies and processed in makeshift tanks. Figures indicate that the practice sees Nigeria lose an average of 200,000 barrels of oil per day, more than 10% of production. 10 people have been confirmed dead and 16 others are still missing after a tour boat went missing off Japan's northern coast over the weekend. Carrying 26 people, the Kazu-1 disappeared while on a sightseeing tour around Hokkaido's Shiretoko Peninsula. In the last known contact with the boat at 1:15 p.m. local time on Saturday, the crew reported that it was taking on water. Rescue boats and police and military aircraft have been dispatched to the area and are getting help from local fishing boats. On the day of the incident, the area saw high waves, although authorities have not yet confirmed what caused the boat to sink. People in Egypt have been using a phone app to reduce food waste. The Takea application lets people buy excess food at a discount or for free from restaurants or suppliers, and people can also order these meals to be given to charity. Founded by the Dubai-based couple Mena Shahin and husband Max Hartzen, the application was launched in 2019. In 2021, they managed to save 40,000 meals, and they are looking to expand their app to allow business-to-business trade. The United Nations Environmental Programme estimates Egypt's household food waste at 91 kilograms per person per year. After a 2-year break due to COVID-19, Rio de Janeiro's famous carnival is back. One of the highlights of the 10-day festival, the Samba Parade, took place at the Sambadrome on Saturday. Elite Samba schools from across the country took part, each with their own unique regiment of dancers, drummers, divas and colourful costumes. The festival also includes special sections for the young and elderly, opening up the carnival to people of all ages. Brazil's largest annual event was delayed this year from its traditional date in February to April due to the Omicron variant. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good Monday afternoon. As warm southwesterly winds are blowing into the country, this means another day of unusually high temperatures, much higher than the normal, will continue. An approaching low-pressure system will bring rain starting on Jeju Island today before expanding nationwide. The south coast and mountain areas of Jeju are predicted to see pockets of heavy downpours, followed by thunder, lightning, and gale force of wind up to 20 meters per second. The heavy downpours could lead to flooding near the waterfront or other vulnerable areas, so make sure you're protected against any potential damage. And temperature-wise, highs are 7 to 8 degrees higher than the average, almost summer-like. Seoul is topping off at 27 degrees and other southern areas will reach around 30 degrees too. And after the rain tapers off, a cold northerly wind will follow. Then temperatures will be much cooler again, with Seoul dipping down to 9 degrees in the morning. Now let's take a look at the worldwide weather conditions.
That brings us to the end of Monday's edition. We'll be back with more coverage tomorrow. That is Tuesday. Join us then. Thank you for now.